So let me start off now with the macro view, the big picture, before we zoom in to the ground. My first question goes to Raffaele. I know, Raffaele, you've been working for a while on the issue of skills at the OECD, and more recently on entrepreneurial skills. Would you be able to explain to us quickly what these skills are according to your analysis and what you have found? The floor is yours, Raffaele.
Thank you very much, TJ. Thank you to Julia. Thank you to the other experts for having invited me, giving me the possibility to address such a large number of people. TJ, I would like to echo Julia's intervention before and start from the end of my point, in the sense that I think that skills are first and foremost important policy goals. And for two reasons. First, because they empower individuals and help individuals with their self-determination, decide about their own fate, and have a great impact on well-being. And this has been measured by the OECD and has become one of the key measures that the OECD try to emphasize. It's about well-being. It's about this multidimensional approach to policy evaluation. And the other point, if you want, is at the level of society, because for policymakers, the support of skilled individuals to deal with societal challenges is very important. We will need skilled individuals to help us with climate change issues, with inclusiveness, to make our societies more sustainable and just in the future. Of course, this sometimes can be seen as an optimistic vision of skills, but this is a more complex discussion that we have not the time to address in this conversation. Now, let me go back to my narratives. And let me say that the skills are information that people use to perform tasks or to engage in some actions, okay? And there is also a link between skills and actions. There's a sort of cognitive dissonance in which people learn by doing their activities. And so difficult tasks like being a brain surgeon requires a high level of skills through study and practice. So you have the need to develop the skills in different ways. Recently, in the last 10 years, the OECD is putting increasingly importance on the skills that are not cognitive. So they're not numeracy or literacy, for instance, but they are the affective and behavioral traits of individuals. And these are the non-cognitive skills. Within the non-cognitive skills, there is also called the transversal skills. There is the capacity to work with others, to be proactive, to be creative, etc. And now these skills are, in this framework, we have valued very much the possibility to have entrepreneurial skills. That means that the individuals can be proactive, open to risk, able to work with others, and engage in very difficult tasks because they have this drive in them. So it is about changing, if you want, the mindset of people and give them a new operation system, a new capacity, and a different way to function. And what we have discovered is that it is possible to affect both the cognitive skills of people, but also the non-cognitive skills of people by giving them specific instructions, learning opportunities, and feedback from their activities. So this is a very, comprehensive response to a difficult question. But the point is that in today's economy and society, we really need individuals to be more capable, so to contribute to society, to decide about their own destiny, and to be resilient, especially, this is a time in which we are exposed to different shocks, the pandemic, etc., the digital progress. So an important point is to have people that are able to be open and flexible to these continuous shocks into which they are exposed. And that's the reason why an ancient, so an old conception of skills that was mostly related to the cognitive skills is not sufficient, because at a certain point you need these cognitive skills to evolve and to be responded to more diverse and sophisticated tasks. So that's the reason why now we connect so much the non-cognitive and the cognitive and the non-cognitive skills. And a last point that I want to make is that this flexibility is also depending on the capacity or this capacity of learning to learn. There is one of the most important traits that skilled people have to acquire in today's societies and economies. Learning to learn seems to be, it's not so, it's easy to say, but it's difficult to put in practice, because in a world that is dense of information, possibility for interactions and possibilities for actions, people have to be able to decide what is important to learn, what is relevant for them to know, what kind of interaction are relevant to undertake, and with whom they want to generate these interactions. So I would say that this is a modern narrative about skills, and as you said at the beginning, entrepreneurial skills match this new conception very well, because they are help the individuals creating a new platform of knowledge, by this capacity of trespassing between different domains, which is a characteristic of entrepreneurial spirit, to be able to connect a different area of knowledge, different groups and different categories. So again, entrepreneurial skills are an emphasization of this catalyze the capacity of this learning to learn capacity. Thank you very much. I see that the time is up.
From your role in OECD, with all that has been shared, where do you think the education and training institutions fit in? What is their role in all this? How can they promote more skills for entrepreneurship and innovation in the next generation?
Thank you very much, TJ. It has been very interesting to listen to the other panelists, and I think that is emerging this idea that entrepreneurs are individuals within entrepreneurship ecosystems, so they are not alone. They emerge from communities, and I think that this is an important message also for the higher education institutions and the training institutions. At the OECD, in the Skills Strategy Center, there was this this approach, this framework, dividing skills policy into developing skills, activating skills, and using skills. So, and education policy was traditionally in the first part, so about developing skills. I think that now, especially with the pandemic and with digital revolutions and changes, the challenge for the education and training institutions is to engage with the three dimensions. So the development, the activation, and the use. They have to be as close as possible to the entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem that we are discussing here. And this has been, I have to apologize because I don't know much about the Asian institutions, but in Europe, in America, or in Latin America, where I'm working in this moment, it can be an immense cultural shock for these institutions to become porous, to open the doors to the entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem, to be able to connect and to leverage on the ecosystem, to give students the opportunity to experience real, real tasks, to exchange with entrepreneurs like Sophea or Stefan, and to get to know these people, to get to connect before they have finalized the development of the skills. So everything has to be done at once. And so what they need to do, the institution need to embrace a new culture, need to embrace new governance systems, because the businesses or the local representatives needs to be inside the governance of higher education institutions, and need, importantly, new professional figures that can fill the gap between higher education institutions or training institutions and outside world. Sometimes this is natural. We know University of Applied Science, community colleges, they function in this way, but research institutions that are very important because they have a very high quality and high level of information and skills, if you want, they have still a gap. They mind the gap between the research universities and the real economy. Now we go in certain terrain, because we don't know still what are the practices and what are the outcomes when an education institution decide to engage with innovation and entrepreneurship. They accept to step in a new land. And so what is the idea? Basically is the idea that innovation there is no more frontal lessons, no? Especially after COVID. I think that the university will focus really on group work, on that kind of mentorship that you need to really empower the individuals. There is a need to create community of learning. And we have seen that in some places like École 42 in Paris. There is this idea of a learning program, a gamified learning program that is on 3 years, in which there are no teachers, there are no professors, and everything is about peer learning. Does it work? Yes, in the sense the labor market really recognizes the skills of the people. Now the question is it possible to democratize this approach to everyone? And there we have to understand if a student of philosophy or history can also benefit to be exposed to this kind of experiences, to change the mindset, to become more entrepreneurial. And why is very important that we understand these practices and the outcomes. So because now it's all about inputs. No, you should be entrepreneurial, you should be innovative. But we talk with the business schools, and of course there is a phenomenon of selection of the group, and then you of course have already entrepreneurial people that so it's a sort of echo chamber. But we want to know about the outcomes, so we will be able to adjust the education models, also the new innovation and entrepreneurship education models, to a more structured and more diversified population, because we need to understand what are the practices, because this is super important, because once you have the practices right, you can democratize and go to the lifelong learning, which is very delicate, because there people have very limited amount of time, they have a limited openness, and there is also a financial constraint. You cannot engage them in 4 years program, in 4-year program. So the understanding practices, outcomes is important to democratize innovation, and is important to provide learning to learn. There is always the menace, there is always the challenge of mission overload, because let's go back to beginning. Higher education institutions or education and training institutions are part of entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems. They are actors, they can be drivers, but they cannot be alone, in the sense that education policy or skills policy is not the only one that you need to activate. It's not the only policy that you need to activate to promote entrepreneurship. You need complementarities, you need a platform of policies, so industrial, digital, etc. To otherwise, what you have is brain drain. You know, you form people that are not adapted to your ecosystem, and they fly to the Silicon Valley, London, you know, Singapore, etc. But the message is that we have activated a cultural and policy revolution, and we need people like you, TJ, like Stefan, like Jess, like Sophea, to ally with us to help us understanding what works, what doesn't work, and what is the responses that we have to give to the future of work and society, and also to the present of work and society, because it has become a little bit challenging. I don't know if you noticed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raffaele.